Welcome to The Big Unlock, where we discuss data, analytics, and emerging technologies in healthcare. Here's some of the most innovative thinkers in healthcare information technology talk about the digital transformation of healthcare and how they are driving change in their organizations.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. It is my honor and privilege to have as my special guest today, Dr. Keith Dunleavy, Chairman and CEO of Inovalon. Dr. Dunleavy, welcome.
Thank you, Paddy. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. It's good to be talking to you again.
Thank you very much. For the benefit of our listeners, maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about who Inovalon is and what kind of problems you're solving today for the healthcare industry.
Sure, Paddy. Thank you. Inovalon is a company that is entirely focused on how data can help to improve the understanding and the clinical and economic outcome improvement of healthcare. Data is at the center of all decision-making and all efforts to improve healthcare. And in order to bring that data together, to analyze it, to inform a more intelligent and informed decision in the healthcare community, you need a number of technological capabilities, and it's these technological capabilities that Inovalon is focused on. Those capabilities are the ability to connect into and aggregate massive amounts of data. Number two, to be able to analyze that data in petabyte volumes in incredibly high speeds. Number three is to be able to then take the analysis from that compute and be able to drive meaningful impact in the marketplace, in the point of care, where the patients are actually serviced and taken care of. And then number four, the ability to take all of that impact and summarize it into data visualization and reporting and processes that are necessary for the back end of healthcare to operate and be strategically directioned. So it's these four capabilities that enable what is referred to often in healthcare as the transformation from a volume-driven healthcare market to a value-driven healthcare market that Inovalon is focused on. So it's really a technology layer, a cloud-based technology layer that is enabling and empowering the improvement of healthcare.
Right. And I will come back to the major themes that you highlighted, data-driven healthcare, the transition from fee-for-service to value-based care, and cloud. These are very important emerging themes in healthcare today. I'll come to that in a minute. But first, you made a big, exciting announcement last week, your acquisition of Ability Network. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
And would you like to tell us a little bit about the rationale for the acquisition and the synergies that you expect to drive from the transaction?
Sure. So historically, Inovalon has focused on aggregating information, analyzing it, and driving impact on behalf of the major health plans, pharmaceutical companies, medical device manufacturers, and diagnostic companies around the country. These are large corporations that service tens and hundreds of millions of patients. And we have spent our time developing the analytical capabilities, connection pipes, and cloud compute environments necessary to do that, ultimately getting to the point where we today have over 241 million patients in our system and covering the vast amount of the United States in our work. What combining with Ability Network allows us to now do is to dramatically expand the reach of that analytical capability, that connectivity capability, and the ability to drive impact all the way down to the point of care at 44,000 provider sites around the country. Combining what we have historically achieved at Inovalon together with the SaaS, software as a service, cloud-based platform of Ability Network, allows us to achieve a market-leading vertical integration of data-driven healthcare, all the way from the health plan, the pharmaceutical company, the medical device manufacturer, the diagnostic company, the employer, all the way down to where the patient gets their care at the point of care where the provider is. So this achieves enormous expansion of capability and reach, but also achieves a significant improvement in the operational efficiencies of the company and the scale of the company, allowing us to really deliver end-to-end value-based care enablement through a cloud-based platform across the entire breadth of the ecosystem. It's very exciting for us. There is enormous expansion of channel for the company, and also a very significant expansion of total data set size and connectivity reach. So we're very excited about it. A lot of positives for the healthcare marketplace, as well as the technology marketplace and our shareholders as well. Right. And definitely exciting. It's what, $1 billion or so in transaction size. So it's not a small transaction by any means. It definitely sounds like you're expanding your coverage and reach significantly, especially on the provider side, and even more specifically on the ambulatory side of the continuum. Would that be a fair statement? Paddy, you're spot on. They cover approximately 44,000 what are called provider sites, and as you appropriately point out, what that means in the healthcare world is acute care providers like hospitals and walk-in clinics, post-acute providers like home care and nursing homes and hospice, and ambulatory providers like the doctor's offices that you and I would go to on a routine basis or when we get sick. So across the board, they have that connectivity into those provider environments, and very importantly, they do it in a way that's in the workflow of how those organizations practice medicine. So unlike connectivity that might be in what we call the back end of the IT systems of facilities, Ability Network is part of the front end and the operational day-to-day flow of operations at these centers. They actually have what is called the MyAbility software platform, which is a workspace or a desktop of 7 different applications that their customer base uses every day to execute on the critical needs that they have administratively, clinical quality-wise, regulatory compliance-wise, financial processing-wise, all of the matters that a physician and caregiving facility needs to deal with in order to ultimately operate. So by having that front of mind presence in the provider environment, connected in real time with the Inovalon One platform cloud, allows us to do tremendous things. Have access to information and data in a real-time manner, be able to put analytical results and insights in front of the provider site, also in real time, allow us to help them operate more efficiently, achieve better quality insights and outcomes, have a better financial and economic performance, ultimately improve the patient experience, as well as the overall economics of the whole ecosystem. So it is quite exciting, and it is truly industry leading. There's no other solution that vertically integrates all the way from the major players in the health plan, pharma, device, diagnostics world, all the way down to the patient's point of care in real time in a cloud-based format like we will now have. So it is a very exciting process for us. Absolutely. It does sound like it. Well, all the best on the transaction. I know it's yet to close, but all the best with the transaction close, and I'm sure you're going to have your hands full in the foreseeable future. So, switching topics, Inovalon believes in a data-driven future for healthcare. So,
Can you talk to us a little bit about the emerging data sources? Now we've gone well past electronic health records. That's kind of table stakes now. Everybody's supposed to have access to it, and claims data, which has been around a long time. This is all the traditional data sources, for want of a better word. Now you've got new data sources coming together, right? You've got the IoT data, the social determinant data, genomics data. Soon you're going to have speech data from your Alexa, among other things. What's your view on how all of these new data sources can be integrated into transforming care delivery as we know it? And what role do you see for those types of data sources in your own services and products to your customers?
Well, Paddy, this is an enormously important topic, as you aptly point out. Let's walk through. There's a lot in there in your question. Let's kind of tease out the different parts and pieces of it that allow for a holistic data strategy. So first and foremost, as you point out, there are lots of different types of data that are involved in healthcare. There are the most traditional element that people would refer to as claims data. There's obviously what some people call as clinical data. We'll come back and talk about that in a moment. There's also patient-reported data. There is data that gets reflected in what's called activities of daily living data. There is behavioral data reflecting whether or not a patient is actually doing what they are recommended to do, from as basic as are they getting their prescriptions filled to are they actually doing the physical therapy that they're recommended to have done, and are they managing their salt intake or other aspects of their care. So this is a type of data that's important. There's significant amounts of additional data from activities and devices. So your healthcare trackers that come from your mobile phone, that come from your Fitbit, that come from your electronically connected scale. There is data that comes from medical devices, such as implantable defibrillators and pacemakers and insulin pumps. There's data that comes from, as you point out, genetic components, and genetic is an entire world of its own, where you range from genetic marker data, which is whether a patient has or does not have a particular sequence that is identified as a genetic marker, versus having actual sequence data, which is a more granular level of genetic data. We can come back and talk about that as well. But then also is the very important aspect that you point out about these walled gardens, and the aspect that data for a particular patient resides in so many different locations and platforms. It's not just that there are numerous different types of data, it's also that there are numerous different locations of data and also stages of data. The process of a patient's healthcare experience actually has various different linear steps that alter the data, things like what are called adjudication steps, where the information that reflects a patient's care actually gets edited and expanded on, or actually removed from the data set from a financial point of view or a authorized point of view. So you have this multi-dimensional set of information that is variant in the nature of it, the location of it, the timing of it, the staging of it, all of which needs to be tracked. And this data resides in a highly disparate set of sophistication levels of management in the marketplace, meaning some of it is in very basic diagnostic laboratory machine level repositories. and some of it is in very advanced cloud-based architectures. So the task of bringing this together in comprehensive fashion is rather significant in its scale. And this is something that Inovalon has spent tremendous amount of time, investment, energy, focus, subject matter expertise in developing. So I'll give you a few statistics that you might find interesting. In 2016, the numbers for 2017 I don't have in my head yet, but for 2016, the average Medicare Advantage member in the United States saw 6.2 different physicians. Each one of those physicians more than one location, 2 or more locations, often on different EHR platforms or connected through different HIE systems, so that the average patient typically had data residing in a minimum of 12 different systems around the country, around their ecosystem. And beyond that, of course, they might travel somewhere on vacation and get sick there, or fill a prescription there, or have a visit to an emergency room there. And of course, patients change their name gets incorrectly entered into systems. The multi-additional identifiers of those patients vary by accident or on purpose meaning when they get married or not. And so proper alignment of it with the right patient is incredibly important. At Inovalon, what we've done is we have developed a system of intelligent data integration. We call the front end of this the iPort system. And the iPort system, which has multiple different types, meaning there's enterprise iPort and there's cloud-based iPort, which we call iPort HD. This undertakes a process of allowing the 37 billion medical events that we have in our platform to teach the system what to expect as far as data inflows, because you can't possibly use human data mapping on those kinds of massive data influx. When you're receiving data that ultimately sourced from thousands of different hospitals, tens of thousands of different clinical facilities, hundreds of thousands of different laboratory sources across millions of patients, that is streaming in at a velocity that requires you to have a very intelligent data integration platform. Ours conducts more than 1,100 data integrity analyses on the data that comes in, so that it can identify errors and omissions in the data and get smarter and smarter at identifying where an error might be. So Inovalon's data comes to it in identified what's called primary source fashion, which means we have proper identifiers on all of our data and can longitudinally match up the genetic data with the claims data, with the laboratory data, with the patient reported data, with the physician entered data, with the electronic healthcare record data, and so forth, before then undertaking an encrypted de-identification process on that data. So then to come back to what are we doing in a going forward way, it has also to do with how do you structure that data. So one of the things we have been very mindful over the years is how to make sure that the data structure in our database architecture strategy is laid out in a way that allows for super high speed analysis, because actually the way that you store your data significantly impacts the speed at which you can undertake a multivariate compute process. So we've had to also anticipate the expansion of data types over time in structuring the architecture. How might genetic data look as we get further and further into the granularity of that information? How might patient-reported devices look? So all this is a huge focus of ours. We have a whole team that focuses on data architecture strategy, and it's a significant differentiator of the size and volumes of data that we deal with.
That's thank you for that detailed overview. It sounds to me like if I boil it down, there's a couple of things. One is the ability of an enterprise such as Inovalon to take all the data that's coming in, standardize it, normalize it, and make it usable. To put it very simply, there's also an external factor which you referred to earlier on in your comments, which is about the walled gardens. Right? You have to have having the internal ability to integrate, aggregate, and standardize and normalize the data is one thing, but having the ability to get the data is another thing. And there's some external factors there, which I think you refer to as walled gardens. And we all talk about the I word, interoperability. Just a quick comment on that. Do you think we're getting any closer to solving that through FHIR, for instance? Or do you think it's going to be left to individual enterprises such as Inovalon to find and build solutions and try to gain acceptance across the industry? Where do you think we are in that journey?
I think we're making good progress, Paddy. So I think that we're in a refreshed cycle in the healthcare technology landscape. In our view, you had first generational electronic healthcare record systems, for instance. You then, with the financial stimulus of a few years back, went through a second cycle, an enormous expansion of the brands and formats of EHRs, which dramatically expanded coverage of various different technology platforms, but also, unfortunately, at the same time, expanded the number of variants of data structures that introduced a new challenge of interoperability, ironically. We're now on arguably the third cycle, and this is now driven more intensely by financial scrutiny of how do I, as a hospital or a health plan or an integrated healthcare delivery system, invest my hard-earned dollars into technology as opposed to a scramble to put something in place for meaningful use or collection of stimulus dollars. So the marketplace is being more scrutinizing of platforms today, and the technological functionality and interoperability provided by those different platforms is now getting a lot more attention than arguably it did 4 or 5 years ago. So that is playing well to the market now, increasingly coming up with standards. You're getting this both politically, technologically, and economically, which I think is heading us in the right direction.
Thank you, Dr. Dunleavy. Switching to another topic, cloud. Inovalon's platform is a cloud-based platform, and you pointed to that in your earlier comments. How do you see cloud adoption rates in general today in healthcare? And is there anything holding it back from an accelerated adoption curve?
So we have seen a significant inflection in the adoption of cloud. We at Inovalon began our cloud journey approximately 3 years ago and started aggressively investing into cloud in 2015. And all new development, or the vast majority of new development, was being done in native cloud format. And then in 2017, last year, we brought together approximately 80 different components in our platform into one cloud-based platform called the Inovalon One platform. And we undertook an aggressive migration of clients to that platform because it enabled a far more modular approach to solutioning for our clients' benefit. It allowed for a much more efficient application of technology dollars and elimination of inefficiency, human being time, and overall delivered a higher ROI for our clients, as well as greater flexibility for the company. So by the end of 2017, we had 94 million patients migrated onto our cloud-based platform, which is up about 450% year over year. And that included 4 of the nation's 5 largest healthcare systems. So that is literally within a 12-month period. So an enormously rapid transition of marketplace's willingness to be utilizing the cloud. And I think that that's for a number of different reasons. It's because of the economic pressures on healthcare. It's because of the functionality differentiator able to be delivered in cloud is overcoming the subjective concern around things like security of the data and of the compute environment. So as that has the value able to be delivered through cloud and the economic benefit of being able to be delivered through cloud has accelerated so dramatically over the last 2 or so years, that has overcome the subjective concerns of this new thing, and we're seeing strong positive response to the cloud.
That's really encouraging to hear, Dr. Dunleavy, and I'm sure that it's going to play out well for all the other technology companies and healthcare enterprises who are adopting a kind of a cloud-first strategy, if you will, for new solutions, especially in analytics, where data is coming in from different sources, and potentially the data lakes and data warehouses are now sitting on a cloud somewhere as opposed to an enterprise environment. So that's really encouraging to hear. Now, you also touched upon economic pressures in your comments just now. So we are seeing a shift from fee-for-service to value-based care, and the value-based care train has left the station. Everybody acknowledges that. I'm curious to know your views on how far ahead the industry is in terms of adopting value-based care initiatives, alternate payment models and the like, and not just because of regulatory pressure, but also market pressures and just as a way of doing business for the future. And related to that, how are other forces such as rising consumerism, the growing influence of millennials and their way of consuming healthcare and their way of engaging in general with smartphones and stuff like that? What does all that mean for your business and for the healthcare market? Would you care to comment on that?
Sure, Paddy. So the conversion or the transformation of health stages in different parts of the ecosystem for sure. And if we go back and just look at, what's the history of the value-based care model, one could argue that it started in the late 90s in the Medicaid marketplace, where individual states started introducing value-based components of their payment models or their reimbursement models. And then, of course, you had the introduction of the Medicare Modernization Act in early 2000s. And then the economic downturn in 08, 09 really accelerated the economic pressures on healthcare and led to a rapid expansion of Medicaid programs and then ultimately the Affordable Care Act. But what was happening behind the scenes was that the providers, the hospital systems, and the physicians actually delivering care were being introduced to value-based contracts because of the regulatory movement or the government movement, and that got them familiar with the concept such that when the private sector, large employers, for instance, started to pursue similar models of wanting value considerations to be built into their healthcare models, the provider was familiar with it and accepted it more readily than they would have if the employer came to them directly. So organizations around the country today are signing an increasing number of what are called ACO contracts, or accountable care organization contracts. Some of those are formal ones as described under various laws, but also more prevalent are just the concept of a shared risk agreement, which is a form of a value-based agreement. And you're seeing that most certainly heavily in the health plan marketplace and the hospital and hospital system marketplace, and you're starting to see it progress through the pharmaceutical marketplace. We've signed 9 value-based contracts in the pharmaceutical marketplace, and we're working on the same in the medical device marketplace. So I would put them in that order. I would say that health plans really adopted it first. It then moved more into the provider systems. It moved and is in the process of moving through the pharmaceutical marketplace. And then further down the list is the medical device marketplace. So there are different stages, but it is a train that has left the station. It is happening in healthcare terms very quickly, but it is at different stages.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you had signed some value-based contracts as well. Just so I understand that, so are you putting some of your own revenues at risk for delivering outcomes? Is that what you meant by that?
No, Paddy, we're the technology platform that enables it to happen. So let me try and give you an example. So let's take the pharmaceutical marketplace, for instance. Very well known in healthcare that new drugs are coming onto the market that are very expensive. They're very expensive, but they can deliver a tremendous benefit to the right patient. So a health plan or an employer who is being asked to pay for these medications is obviously sensitive to making sure that it is being given to the right patient, the patient that really needs it and uniquely benefits from it, and that the value argued for the medication is in fact being realized. So herein is a great place for a technology platform that is able to be connected into the ecosystem, the laboratories, the hospitals, the health plans, the pharmaceutical data streams, can help to identify the right patients that fulfill the criteria for being appropriate and eligible for a particular medication, an expensive medication, then can identify that patient to the right physicians, and then can track and report on the impact and benefit and performance of that drug on that patient, so that a pharmaceutical company can go to a health plan and say, we have a great drug, it's expensive, but the value delivered is way in excess of the expense, and we will stand behind that. We have a technology partner by the name of Inovalon who will put in place this platform. You will be able to monitor and see the patients that are on these medications. You'll be able to monitor and see the value that you are receiving. And in exchange, the health plan gets comfortable with the high-cost medication because they can see the high-value benefit, and they're able to see that in near real time using our software, so that all parties are benefited. The pharmaceutical company gets a larger distribution of its drug to an expanded market. The health plan or the employer gets visibility into the value that they are receiving in exchange for what they are paying out. And of course, the patient is getting a new medication that is highly beneficial to whatever condition they're suffering from. And it's software and connectivity and intervention and reporting capabilities on the Inovalon One platform that empowers that entire exchange of value and benefit and cost.
Interesting, very interesting. Dr. Dunleavy, let's talk about Quest Diagnostics. This is one of your strategic partnerships, and this is something that you and I have discussed before. And I also saw that lately you won some awards for the products that you launched collaboratively with Quest. Firstly, congratulations on that. In fact, I featured some of that work in my book as well. Do you want to give us an update on where you are with that partnership? Any key milestones you want to touch upon?
Thanks, Pat. A company that obviously is highly highly penetrated into the marketplace and is looking for lots of ways that not only the laboratory work that they do, but the platform and presence that they have with physicians is leveraged to the greatest degree possible. So as you know, what we put in place in partnership with Quest is the ability to have a request by a physician not only be for a blood laboratory, for instance, but for an analytical test, a data diagnostic, which they can request in the same way that they would request a blood test, but instead of the blood test taking 1, 2, or 3, or however many days to be complete, the analytical test is complete within a couple of seconds and reports back to them on a number of different inquiries they can have so that they can help change how they would practice medicine for the benefit of the patient in real time. So that obviously required significant efforts on Quest side to enable that in their platform, and we at Inovalon designed the real-time capability in an active cloud-native environment format, which was first of its kind, and allowed for responses back within 2 or 3 seconds anywhere in the country, despite the massive size of data moving that was necessary and compute process that was necessary and formulation of a format response that was necessary. So both organizations did some really impressive development and achievement on that. And we are really pleased with where that moved this capability in the marketplace and how many other applications that now obviously has with on-demand real-time analytics. So we continue to move that into different Quest opportunities, meaning clients of theirs, ACOs of theirs, hospital systems of theirs. Neither organization reports out on the volumes under that process, but it is a very exciting and ongoing positive progression of our technologies together. So I very recently met with several of their senior people, and we're excited about next chapters on that as well.
Right, and it's award-winning too, so congratulations on that.
Thank you, Patty.
Well, we're down to our last couple minutes here. I thought maybe you could round out this discussion by talking to us about what your top few priorities are for 2018.
Oh, great. I appreciate it, Patty. I'd love to tell you about some of the new technologies that we've been working on and undertaking in the marketplace, and are extremely exciting. So obviously one of the main focus is we spent a lot of time, energy, and resources in 2016 and 2017 building out our cloud environment. We run a private cloud environment in multiple tier 4 data centers, and also burst into and utilize commercial clouds such as AWS and Azure and others. That large investment we're now converting into strong harvesting of value for our clients and for us. But we're also using that very large compute environment that we now have to do some very exciting new capabilities. One of them is natural language processing as a service, or NLP as a service. In 2016, we developed a natural language processing capability here at Inovalon to decrease the amount of human intervention we needed to convert unstructured data into structured data. We rolled that out across the company in 2017, and it dramatically decreased our personnel requirements and therefore obviously cost, and dramatically increased our speed. You combine NLP together with direct connect EHRs, and you get a capability that allows you to aggregate clinical data in real time from millions of different patient data sources, and then apply natural language processing on it in near real time, and provide back a compute on what was previously thought of as So we have started rolling out a service called NLP as a service, where organizations can literally just license and use that software capability in large scale. We have made great progress on that. We're excited about that. And that requires the enormous compute environment that we've developed and the connectivity that we've developed. So bringing together investments that we have done to bring truly market-leading capabilities out into healthcare. So it's just one of the examples of things we're working on here in 2018, and we're excited about it.
Yeah. And unstructured data is, of course, the vast unexplored frontier of healthcare data, which by some estimates constitutes 80% of all healthcare data out there. So that should be exciting too. So you're opening up the new frontier there. Well, yep.
No, it is truly exciting. And as an engineer and a physician, I was an electrical engineer before I went off to medical school, to sit in a conference room and watch on the screen cases in real time be aggregated and analyzed from all their different EHR locations and identified as whether or not this patient's cancer is progressing, is stable, needs a change in therapeutic approach. It is truly amazing, absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable. That's great. So, Dr. Dunleavy, we are at the end of our allotted time for this. I greatly appreciate you taking the time. It's a real pleasure speaking with you as always, and all the very best for the rest of the year and beyond.
Paddy, always a pleasure, and I appreciate your time. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, and have a great day. It was really good talking to you. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Tanya.
Take care, Paddy. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
You too.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Subscribe to our podcast series at www.thebigunlock.com and write to us at info@thebigunlock.com.